Wow, okay, you weren't kidding about wanting to deep dive into hydrogen, huh? We've got a stack of articles here, research papers, even a couple chapters from what looks like a textbook. Someone's been doing their hydrogen homework.
It seems our listeners are really captivated by hydrogen's potential.
And yeah, I get it. I mean, it's being called the fuel of the future everywhere you look these days. The more you learn about it, the more fascinating it gets.
It's true, there's a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, but with that comes.
A whole lot of hype, right? And that's what we're here for, to cut through all that and see what's really going on.
Exactly. We're diving deep into the science, the history, the potential, and yes, even the challenges.
Because, let's be real, it can't be all smooth sailing to a hydrogen-powered future, can it? But before we get into all that, did you know that Jules Verne, the science fiction writer, actually predicted hydrogen power way back in 1874?
1874, talk about ahead of his time. He really tapped into something that scientists have been exploring ever since.
Seriously, 1874? Okay, that's pretty wild. But to understand all this hydrogen hype, maybe we should take it back even further, like way, way back.
You're talking about the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
Roughly 13.8 billion years ago. That's where it all began for hydrogen, literally.
The Big Bang. Okay, now we're talking. But what does the Big Bang have to do with the hydrogen we're trying to use here on Earth?
Well, in those first moments after the Big Bang, as the universe cooled and expanded, the simplest atomic nucleus formed. And that, my friend, was hydrogen.
So the hydrogen fueling stars is the same stuff we're trying to put in our cars.
Very same. And it's still out there, making up a massive chunk of the universe's mass. And you know what? It's all around us here on Earth, too. Primarily in the form of water.
Right. H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. But we can't exactly fuel a car with seawater, can we? Or can we?
Not quite. Although, you're onto something with the whole water thing. It's all about electrolysis, a process of using electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And get this, the first time someone did that was way back in 1800.
1800? Seriously, they were splitting atoms back then. What happened? Why weren't we all driving hydrogen cars by, 1850?
Well, they were definitely onto something, but the technology just wasn't there yet. Electricity itself was still pretty new, pretty expensive to produce.
So they discovered this amazing process, but couldn't really do much with it. I guess that's how it goes sometimes.
Exactly. But fast forward to today, and we have solar panels, wind turbines, all sorts of ways to create clean electricity.
And that changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly, we can use renewables to power electrolysis and create what they call green hydrogen, a clean, sustainable fuel source.
You got it. And that's what's got everyone so excited. It's a potential game changer. But there's another layer to this story. Even before we fully understood it, we were already using hydrogen in some pretty surprising ways, long before we were talking about green hydrogen.
Oh, yeah, like what? Those old-timey hot air balloons?
Not hot air, but you're close. Think hydrogen-filled balloons. In 1783, not long after hydrogen was discovered, Jacques Charles built the first hydrogen balloon. He even took it for a spin.
He just hopped in a balloon filled with this flammable gas and went for a ride. Talk about a leap of faith.
It was a different time, that's for sure. But those early flights really captured the public's imagination. They showed that hydrogen was more than just some scientific curiosity. It had real potential.
Okay, that's a pretty cool story. I kind of want to go for a hydrogen balloon ride now. But balloons aside, you said we were using hydrogen in other ways back then, too.
Absolutely. Remember those old gas lamps you see in historical movies? The ones lighting up those spooky Victorian streets? A lot of those used town gas, which came from heating coal.
Wait, so those spooky Victorian streets were lit by hydrogen? That's kind of awesome.
They were. Town gas was a mixture of gases, and yes, hydrogen was one of them. And while it was mainly used for lighting and heating, it hinted at hydrogen's potential as a fuel source.
Wow, so even back then, we were catching glimpses of what hydrogen could do. It's amazing how these things connect. But those early uses, they weren't exactly environmentally friendly, were they?
Not really. Town gas relied on coal. And even those early electrolysis experiments, well, they needed electricity. And back then, that usually meant burning fossil fuels. So not exactly green.
Okay, so how do we get from those early, not so great uses of hydrogen to the clean, sustainable fuel source everyone's talking about today?
Now, that's where things get really interesting. But I think we need to take a little break before we dive into that. We've already covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, from the Big Bang to Victorian street lamps, that's a lot of hydrogen history. But don't worry, everyone. We'll be right back to pick up where we left off. All right, we're back, ready to jump back into the world of hydrogen.
Ready when you are. Last time, we traveled all the way from the Big Bang to those gas lights illuminating Victorian streets.
Talk about a journey. But now I think it's time we arrive at the present moment, yeah? Where things are getting really interesting with hydrogen.
Absolutely. We left off talking about electrolysis, right? That process of splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity.
Right, using electricity. And that's the key to unlocking green hydrogen, isn't it?
It is. Green hydrogen is what has everyone so fired up about hydrogen right now. Because if we can power that electrolysis process with renewable energy sources like solar, wind.
We could have a clean, endless supply of fuel.
Exactly. And it's not just a theory anymore, it's actually happening. All around the world, countries are investing in green hydrogen technologies.
It's like a worldwide race to green energy powered by hydrogen. Who's in the lead?
Well, Japan's definitely a front runner, no question. They've even announced plans to become a hydrogen society. I'm talking billions of dollars invested into fuel cell technology, hydrogen fueling stations. They even powered the Olympic Village during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics with hydrogen.
Wait, they did. The Olympics ran on hydrogen power.
He did. They had hydrogen fuel cell buses for athletes and spectators. Even the torch for the relay was hydrogen powered. It was a glimpse into a hydrogen powered future.
Wow, that's amazing. Japan is really all in on hydrogen, huh? Who else is making big moves?
South Korea is another big player. Their goal is to have millions of fuel cell vehicles on the road by 2040. They also want to become a global leader in hydrogen production.
Okay, so we've got Asia going all in. What about the rest of the world?
Europe's getting on board too, especially Germany. They're investing heavily in green hydrogen research and development. Goal is to become a major exporter of hydrogen technology.
Seems like everybody's catching hydrogen fever. I kind of have it now too.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
This isn't just about swapping out gasoline for our cars. We're talking about applications way beyond just transportation.
Oh, yeah. Like what else can we do with hydrogen?
Okay, imagine a world where we can make things like steel and cement without those massive carbon emissions.
Wait, really? But those industries are huge polluters.
Exactly. And that's where green hydrogen comes in. It can replace those polluting processes, slashing those carbon footprints. Green steel made with green hydrogen. That's a game changer for heavy industry.
Wow, so green hydrogen can help clean up those industries that are so hard to decarbonize? Okay, now we're talking. What else you got?
Here's another big one. Energy storage. One of the challenges with solar and wind power is that they're intermittent, right? Sometimes the sun isn't shining, the wind isn't blowing.
Right, that's what all the critics say. But hydrogen can help with that, right?
Exactly. We can use excess renewable energy, when the sun's blazing or it's super windy, to produce green hydrogen and store it. Think of it like a giant clean energy battery.
So we can store sunshine and wind for a rainy day.
You got it. It's a way to make renewable energy more reliable and practical on a larger scale. And there's even more. Hydrogen can also be used to create what are called synthetic fuels. These could be huge for things like aviation and shipping, industries that are really tough to electrify using batteries alone.
So from our homes and cars to these giant industries like steelmaking and even airplanes, green hydrogen really could change everything.
It has the potential to completely revolutionize the way we power the world. And it all goes back to those early discoveries, those moments where scientists first realized what this element could do. It's been an incredible journey of discovery.
It sounds like we're on the verge of a hydrogen revolution. But with all this talk about the future, let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. What does this mean for us regular folks? How will a hydrogen economy actually impact our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one we're going to unpack right after this.
Okay, we're back. We've talked a lot about the potential of hydrogen, but let's get down to brass tacks here. How will this hydrogen revolution actually impact, everyday people like me and you?
That's the question, isn't it? Well, how about we start with something we all care about? Money. One of the biggest potential benefits of a hydrogen economy is greater energy independence, which could mean lower energy bills.
So no more stressing about gas prices going crazy or those global events that seem to mess everything up. Sign me up.
Exactly. Imagine a world where you're not at the mercy of those fluctuations. Your home, your car, all powered by clean, affordable hydrogen, potentially even generated locally.
Okay, now you're talking. But what about the environmental impact? That seems to be a big part of this whole hydrogen story.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most exciting things about it. Transitioning to a green hydrogen economy could significantly reduce those harmful greenhouse gases that are driving climate change. We're talking cleaner air, a healthier planet for everyone.
Wow. Okay, so it's good for our wallets and good for the planet. Seems like a win-win, right? But I mean, it can't be that easy, can it? There's got to be some downsides, right?
Well, it's not quite as simple as flipping a switch and suddenly everything's running on hydrogen. There are challenges for sure. We still need to make producing green hydrogen on a large scale more affordable, more accessible. And then there's the whole issue of storage and transportation. We've got to figure out safe, efficient ways to move hydrogen around.
Right, makes sense. It's like we're standing at the edge of a whole new era, and it's a little, I don't know, unnerving, kind of like those early pioneers we talked about, hopping into those hydrogen balloons. A little bit scary, maybe even a little crazy, but also really exciting.
I love that analogy. And you're right, it does feel like we're on the verge of something truly transformative. There are definitely challenges ahead, but the potential benefits, I mean, a cleaner environment, energy independence, economic growth, that's pretty hard to ignore.
It really is. It just goes to show you progress takes time, it takes innovation, and it takes people working together to make it happen. Who would have thought that the same stuff that powers the stars could hold the key to a more sustainable future here on Earth?
It's a pretty incredible thought, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really speaks to the power of human ingenuity, to our drive to make things better. And while Jules Verne might have dreamed of a hydrogen-powered world back in the 19th century, it might actually be our generation that makes it a reality.
And that brings us back to you, our listeners. Your curiosity, your questions about hydrogen, that's what sparked this whole deep dive. And we've covered a lot of ground: the history, the science, the potential, even some of those challenges. But really, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
That's right. So keep those questions coming, keep exploring, keep learning, because knowledge is power. And the more we all understand this complex and fascinating world of hydrogen, the better equipped we'll be to navigate our way towards a brighter future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into hydrogen. Until next time, stay curious.